Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a mystery that's happening right now, all around you, in every single park, garden, and even on your windowsill. It's a process so common we barely even notice it, but honestly, it's one of the most incredible things happening on our planet.
I mean, really think about that for a second. We animals, we have to run around, find food, eat it, digest it, all that work just to grow and survive. But a plant, it just sits there. And somehow, a tiny little seed turns into this huge, massive tree, all without ever taking a bite. So where does all that stuff, the leaves, the branches, the trunk, where does it all come from? That is the mystery we're going to solve today. And really, it all boils down to this one fundamental difference. Animals are what we call consumers. We have to go out and find our energy. But plants, they're producers. They literally make their own food from scratch. So, what's their secret recipe? Let's find out.
Okay, let's dive right in. And just like any good detective story, we're going to start by gathering some basic clues. We'll set up a really simple experiment to figure out what the absolute non-negotiable things a plant needs to get by. So here's our setup. Super simple. We've got 3 little saplings, all identical. Pot A is our happy plant, our control. It gets plenty of sunlight and a drink of water every day. Pot B gets all the sun at once, but nope, no water. And finally, pot C gets all the water it needs, but we're going to stick it in a dark closet. So, place your bets. What do you think is going to happen? All right, 2 weeks later, the results are in, and wow, they are crystal clear. Pot A, our sun and water plant, is doing great. It's thriving. Pot B, with sun but no water, well, it's wilted and sad, which isn't a huge surprise. But check out pot C. With water but 0 sun, it's all pale and yellow and barely grew at all. These right here are our first major clues. So our first big takeaway is obvious. It is not an either-or deal. For a plant to be healthy and green and actually grow, it needs both sunlight and water. Okay, so we've got 2 of our key ingredients, but this just makes the mystery even more interesting. What is the plant actually doing with that light and water? So we know a plant uses sunlight and water, but what is it making? Now it's time to take our investigation out of the garden and into the lab, so to speak, to figure out the secret recipe that's being cooked up inside the plant's little food factories, its leaves.
This is the next logical question, right? We keep saying the plant is making food, but what is it? What's the chemical? Well, lucky for us, there's a really classic old-school science test that's going to give us the answer.
To figure out what this mystery food is, we're going to do an iodine test. First, you boil the leaf, and that's just to soften it up and break down the cell walls. Then, and this part is key, you soak it in alcohol. That pulls out all the green stuff, the chlorophyll, so it doesn't get in the way of our results. And finally, you add a few drops of iodine. And boom! There's our answer. The leaf turns this deep blue-black color. And you know what that means? Iodine only does that when it comes into contact with starch. We found it! The mystery food is starch, a type of carbohydrate. A huge piece of our puzzle just snapped right into place. Okay, so we've got sunlight and water, and we know the final product is starch. But is our recipe complete? Is that everything we need? Turns out, nope. We're still missing 2 absolutely crucial ingredients. And a couple more really clever experiments give us the final clues. First, if you take a leaf that has both green parts and white parts, and you do that same iodine test, only the green parts turn blue-black. That tells us you absolutely need that green pigment, chlorophyll. Then, if you stick part of a leaf inside a bottle with no carbon dioxide, that part of the leaf can't make starch. So there it is. Our final ingredient is carbon dioxide, the gas we all breathe out. And now that we have all the pieces, sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and chlorophyll, we can finally give this incredible process its name. It's called photosynthesis. It's the magic by which plants use the sun, water, and air to make their own food. And you gotta notice that last part, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. A pretty important byproduct, I'd say. And here it is. The secret recipe of life, all laid out in one beautiful, elegant equation. On the left, you have your ingredients, carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil. The whole process is powered by sunlight, and the magic happens thanks to chlorophyll. And what comes out the other end? Glucose. That's a simple sugar that gets stored as starch. And, of course, the oxygen that we all need to breathe.
This idea that there's more going on with a plant than meets the eye isn't new at all. Centuries and centuries ago, an ancient Indian text on plant life called the Vriksha Yurveda noted that trees do not produce fruits and flowers merely because they are planted. People have known for a very long time that there was some kind of hidden magic at work.
Okay, so the food factory, the kitchen, is in the leaves. But what about the rest of the plant? The roots are way down in the dark soil. The stem needs to get bigger. They need energy too. So how does the food get from the factory and the leaves to everywhere else? Well, plants have this brilliant two-way internal highway system. You can think of it like plumbing and an elevator in a skyscraper. First, you've got the xylem. That's the water pipe. It's a set of tubes that sucks water and minerals up from the roots all the way to the top. And then you have the phloem. That's the food delivery service, taking all those sugars made in the leaves and sending them down to feed every other part of the plant. And what's really cool is you can actually see this highway in action. If you take a white flower, like a carnation, and you put its stem in some water with red food coloring, you just wait. After a day or so, you'll see these delicate red lines creeping up the petals. That red ink is being pulled up through the xylem. It's an amazing experiment that literally makes the invisible visible. All right, we're on to the final piece of this whole puzzle. We know how plants make their food, but how do they actually use it? And this is where things get really, really interesting, because it brings up a super common point of confusion. Exactly. You're probably thinking, hold on, you just spent all this time telling me that plants take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. But we all learn in school that living things breathe in oxygen to live. So which one is it? Are plants breathing in CO2 or are they breathing in oxygen? And the answer is, they do both. It's wild, right? Just think of it like this. Photosynthesis is the process for making food, for storing energy. Respiration is the process for using that food to release the energy so the plant can grow. And here is the absolute key difference. Photosynthesis only happens when the sun is out. But respiration, that's happening all the time, 24/7, day and night, just like it does in us. So plants take in CO2 to make their food, but they take in oxygen to burn that food for energy. So we've followed all the clues, we've run the experiments, and we have cracked the case of how a plant eats. So after all that, what's the big takeaway? Why does any of this matter? So here it all is in a nutshell. Plants are basically master chemists. They use that incredible process, photosynthesis, to turn air, water, and sunlight into their own food. In the process, they give us the oxygen we need to breathe, almost like a gift. They've got that brilliant internal highway system, the xylem and phloem, to move water up and food down. And just like us, they're always respiring, burning their food to get the energy they need to live. When you step back and think about it, this isn't just a cool bit of biology. It's an extraordinary, life-giving process that is happening silently all around us, all the time. It literally powers our entire world, giving us the air we breathe and the food we eat. And it's all happening right there in plain sight. It kind of makes you wonder, what other everyday miracles are we all missing?